Well, welcome to JAM Consulting's Coach's Corner. Hi, I'm George Amadon, Managing Partner with JAM Consulting. And JAM's an organization that for the past 2 decades has been helping sales professionals and sales organizations maximize their performance. We specialize in 2 areas, sales effectiveness and leadership development. One of the key differentiators to our programs is the fact that we build in behavioral science principles that address both the individual, the person, as well as the process. We're excited about being able to share with you this short webinar on balancing change. The fact is that change provides opportunity. We've all heard that, but it also can cause disruption. And so in the time that we have, what we'd like to talk about are 3 areas. First of all, what's changed? Second of all, what can I do about it? And then if you elect to act on it, what's the payoff to you? So let's take a look at what's changed. Well, in the old environment, we had a feeling of comfort, a sense of security, predictability to our routines. There was a level of certainty as to what we could expect. We had a healthy balance as far as dealing with that change. But that's changed. It's been disrupted. As of today, that predictability to our routine has been replaced with unpredictability. That sense of comfort, of security, knowing what to expect, that level of certainty has been replaced with uncertainty, causing an unhealthy balance. Fact is that when change occurs, it causes uncertainty, which leads to anxiety, which ends up in stress. And when we think about stress, the actual definition of it is a state of mental or emotional strain from very demanding circumstances. And I think we could all agree that based on what's happening today, there's some very demanding circumstances going on. We know this, that everybody has stress. It's really about how you deal with it. And there's a healthy way to deal with it, and there's an unhealthy way to deal with it. What research shows, and the psychological testing that's been done tells us, is that in environments like this, our mental toughness is challenged. Fact is our resiliency is under attack. And we have this feeling of being isolated, that we're kind of on our own. And so when we look at this, all of this can lead to an unhealthy balance and how we deal with stress and with change. Simply put, it makes us feel anxious. I'm going to do a quick little exercise, and all I want you to do is, if you've got a piece of paper, is just to pull it out, and as I go through these, write either yes or no. I'm just going to ask you some basic behaviors to see if you've ever experienced these things recently. Have you ever found yourself quick to anger? Maybe having some frustrated responses when people are asking you questions or asking you to do things? Yes or no? Have you found a level of suspiciousness, that you're questioning things more, that there's a kind of a lack of trust, whether it's working with your associates and not feeling that they're capable of getting the things done that need to be done because they're working from home now, they're being disconnected from you compared to what it was like in the past? Yes or no? Do you find yourself, as you take on some of these projects, that you're working more and more by yourself, that you're becoming more and more self-reliant? And self-reliance isn't a bad thing until it becomes excessively self-reliant. So do you ever find yourself not looking for input from others, that you decided that you're going to move forward on this and just handle it on your own? Do you find yourself maybe taking greater risks than what you've taken in the past? There's a level of impulsivity that sets in, that you feel that you need to act, and sometimes you don't think about the consequences as much based on those actions. Have you found yourself doing that? Do you find yourself procrastinating more, maybe to a level that is different than what you've done in the past, this irrational procrastination, putting things off because you're afraid to make a decision? How about this idea of cognitive rigidity? Psychologists and psychiatrists talk about this. It's the inflexible thinking that you have, that you are unable to think outside the box, that you take a look at things and are very tunnel vision from that standpoint. Have you caught yourself in that situation? Yes or no? Have you caught yourself seeking familiar patterns? That is, are you looking at how you've done things in the past, think about how you want to do them in the future, and then find that you're making the same mistakes, not getting out of that cycle per se? Yes or no? So why should you care? if we've identified some of these different behaviors, why should you care? Well, if you have this unhealthy balance in how you deal with stress, it can cause you to underperform. So it has an impact on your overall performance, whether it's from a professional standpoint or a personal standpoint. It has a significant impact on that. So this idea of an unhealthy balance looks something like this. We all like to accomplish things. We find value as individuals in that. This idea of achievement is important. And when things change, when we have some uncertainty that comes into play, maybe this ability to accomplish things, this level of achievement starts to drop off, and it creates stress. The challenge here is that stress, if we're not careful and we don't handle it in a healthy way, can turn into what psychiatrists and psychologists will call shame. And really, it's this idea of putting your confidence at risk. It's about weakening your confidence. It's the idea here that a level of embarrassment sets in because you're not being as successful as you have been in the past. And so you start to withdraw. And what happens then is you become more self-reliant. You look internally versus externally. You become more autonomous, that you're really not looking for feedback or input from other people, and you feel that you can get yourself out of this. And what happens is you get into this very unhealthy cycle of wanting to achieve, not getting there, stress sets in, you're not able to come out of that in a healthy way. The shame sets in, this embarrassment, this lack of self-confidence or hurting your self-confidence comes into play, and then you become more and more internally focused, and you can't get yourself out of this unhealthy cycle. So what can you do about it? Well, how do you establish a healthy balance? And really the idea here is, we've talked about this unhealthy balance. When it gets to this level where you've identified the stress, what you need to do is have a support system in place that will help bring you out of this so that you can actually recover and then move back into that level of accomplishment and achievement. It's really identifying some of these different areas that you can actually control that will give you a chance to build that healthy balance when you deal with change. So what can you do? Well, first of all, it's about recognizing it. And as we talk with many of the psychiatrists and psychologists that we interact with and deal with, they indicate how important it is to, first of all, recognize it. The second thing is to build a support system. And then finally, it's how do you recover? What's your recovery system that you have in place? And so we'll take a look at each one of these three. So recognize. If you can name it, you can tame it. That's a little quote that we heard from a group that we work with. And really the whole idea here is the first step in anything is this idea of self-reflection. If you can identify it in yourself, if you can see that you're stressed, if you can see that you're starting to withdraw from the standpoint that you're looking internally more than starting to look externally, that's the first step. And in doing that, it gives you a chance then to start to look for support. When we talk about support, really it could be your spouse or significant other, it could be a peer, it could be a mentor, it could be a coach, but really it needs to be someone that's going to provide you with what we call that truth talk. That they're going to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. What comes into play here is by building out the support system, it meets one of those behavioral science principles that we all need, and that is to be heard and understood. Now that support system is something that we all will find. There's healthy support systems and there's unhealthy support systems. And if we don't put a healthy one in place, we can gravitate towards things like alcohol or drugs or other things that are not going to be as healthy for us. But we will find some type of a support system when we feel this stress. So again, thinking about it from that standpoint, can you identify someone that can be that support system for you? Again, it could be a spouse or significant other, it could be a peer, it could be a mentor, it could be a coach, but it's going to be someone that's going to provide that truth talk and tell you the way things are, not what you want to hear. The third area talks about recovery. And really what we want to do here is we need to establish a routine. We need to exercise both the mind and the body. And we need to work on our resiliency. So as far as establishing a routine, I think that's one of the things that again, that we all strive for. We look for patterns as individuals. And having a routine in place lowers that level of stress. We talk about building habits, and there's a great quote from Jim Ryan, one of the great American milers, and he said this, is that motivation gets you up, but it's habit that keeps you going. And so from that standpoint, we know that it takes 21 days to form a new habit. And so in this environment with change, many of us are going to have to form new routines. And so being very focused on how to establish that routine, getting it in a place, and building that habit is going to be important. We talk about exercising both the mind and the body. We need to look at positive ways to deal with both. We know that with physical exercise, it creates endorphins that make us feel better. And we also need to do things around the mind in a positive way. It's very easy today to get caught up in a lot of the negative news, the sensationalism that's going on, and that can have a detrimental effect on us. It's important for us to stay informed, but we need to find outlets that will bring in positive emotional strength to us so that we build our capacities within our mind. And then finally, with optimism, it's really about being resilient. It's about enhancing your resiliency. And how do we do that? Well, there's a couple different things that we can do here. First of all, is that what we need to realize is that when we make plans, we need to take them one step at a time. It's like many of us have New Year's resolutions, and at the beginning of the new year, we indicate that we're going to lose 20 pounds or 30 pounds. And the reality of it is that they're not realistic in how we approach it, because we hope to lose that within a week or 2 weeks or within a month. They need to be realistic. It needs to be a step-by-step process that allows us to carry them out in a more effective and realistic way. The second thing is that we need to embrace a positive view of ourselves and the confidence in our strengths and abilities. And an easy way for us to do that, and this is just a simple self-audit that I'd like you to do. Again, as you're listening to this, if you take a minute to sit down and jot this out, I'd like you to answer 3 questions. And those 3 questions are this. First of all, if I were to ask you this, what do your best clients, peers, or friends say they appreciate most about you? What is that? Jot down 2 or 3 things that come to mind here. What are those things that they appreciate most about you? The second thing is, what matters most to you? Whether from a professional standpoint or from a personal standpoint, what matters most to you? What are the values that you follow? What is critical in how you interact with individuals, how you build relationships? What matters most to you? And then finally, what are those skills or expertise that you have that allow you to do what you do? If you can answer those 3 questions, just take the time to jot down 2 or 3 things in each one of those areas. This gives you a chance to do a self-audit, which helps build that positive view of yourself and confidence in your strengths and abilities. And then finally, as we look at the daily tasks that we do, commit to assigning a positive meaning to some of these everyday events that we come across. If we can find positive meaning to a number of these things, it creates more resiliency in us. So again, just some simple ideas here that you can utilize that will help you build a more healthy balance in dealing with this change. Which brings us to the third topic that we talked about. If you look at doing some of these things, what's the payoff to you? Why would you do it? Well, what we found is this, is we know this, that change brings opportunity. Whether it's in a personal life or professional life, we know that change brings opportunity if we approach it in the right way. And the fact is that having a healthy balance in how you deal with this change will increase your performance. So just to recap here quickly, remember this, as we're looking at dealing with this in a more healthy way, first of all is recognize that stress in yourself and others. First step, self-reflection. Second thing is find support. Build a support system for yourself and be compassionate to others. Be part of their support system as well. And then finally, from a recovery standpoint, keep your mind and body moving in a constructive, positive direction. So if you like what you've heard here, and this seems to be something of interest to you, happy to talk more about this. You can reach us at jamconsultinggroup.com, and we're always available here to listen, to talk, and help in any way that we can. Thanks again for joining us on this short webinar, and we look forward to hearing from you. Have a great day.